They don't pay us to think. They pay us to know. We know we can beat them. There's no excuses why we shouldn't. Win the game. Period. W's on 3, man. Let's go. W on 3. 1, 2, 3. W.
Welcome, all my fellow Redskin brethren and sistren. I am your man and resident Redskins fan, Lou. Thank you for joining me here on the Redskins Report Live. Week 11 edition, coming off of a tough loss on Sunday, one that I think will probably come back to haunt us as we look back on this season. And look, the injuries have really put this team in a tough position, in a tough bind this year. No doubt about that. And I'm a man of few, if any, excuses. But injuries have really hampered the Redskins this year. And despite the depth that I think this team actually did have coming into the season, it's been tested. They've done as good a job as they can possibly do. But we've got even more injuries now. And while we're getting some players back, they're not the same as they once were. I mean, Brandon Sheriff played in the game on Sunday. If you remember that 4th down and 1 play where he gets beat across his face by Tom Johnson, that doesn't happen a month ago when Brandon Sheriff is healthy. It's just, this team isn't the same team. And you look at various positions. Will Compton is now lost for the season on IR with the Liz Frank injury, the same injury that claimed the season of Jonathan Allen. So now you're down another inside linebacker. Now we're dangerously thin at inside linebacker, which was one of our deeper positions coming into the season. You lose Rob Kelly for the season. Now he's done with the ankle and knee injury that he sustained, and it looked ugly. It could have been worse. I thought it was going to be worse when he first sustained the injury. He's now done for the season. And now you're looking around like, where's Mac Brown? He's in Minnesota now. And just at the time when we could actually use a Mac Brown for depth purposes, we had to remove him from the roster. And they didn't want to do it, but because of all the injuries to the offensive line, they had to go out just so we could field a team a couple of weeks back. So they had to cut Mac Brown loose. And now we're going to have to go sign some unknown commodity at running back that hopefully, for our sake, doesn't have to see the field at any point for the remainder of the season. But we may be forced to have a guy that we don't trust on the field at running back because we're dangerously thin at that position now due to injuries. So things aren't getting much better, and the schedule isn't getting any easier at this very moment. It will lighten up at some point. And statistically, the Redskins have played the toughest schedule in 2017 in the entire National Football League to this point. And of course, that's why I talk about looking at the schedule before the season and making predictions and talking about what teams are good or bad is irrelevant. Or as I like to say, an exercise in futility. Because you don't know who's going to be. Who knew the New Orleans Saints would be 7-2 and one of the hottest teams in football when we were going to New Orleans in Week 11? Who thought that would be the case at this juncture of the season when we go off to New Orleans to take on the Saints? Not I. Who thought that the 2 games at the back end of the season versus the Giants would be meaningless games against a sorry Giants team that might have quit by the time we get to them? None of us did. We couldn't have imagined the Chiefs would get off to the start that they did. Couldn't have imagined the Rams would end up being the team that they have been. Couldn't imagine that the Vikings, even though we looked at the Vikings and said, that's a damn good football team. Who knew they were going to get off to a 7-2 start? 6-2 when we met them. So, Eagles, I mean, hell, we played the Eagles twice already. They've swept us, and they're the best team in the league right now. No one saw all of those things coming. And those aren't excuses. If we want to be a good team, we got to beat good teams. And We had a golden opportunity on Sunday. When I look back at that game, it makes me sick to my stomach. Looking at all the missed opportunities of this football team, and that's why we're not going to make the playoffs this year. We don't deserve to go to the playoffs. We're not a good enough football team because good football teams take advantage of the opportunities that were given to us on Sunday, and we just simply failed to do that. And it's those types of games that really, really make you upset. They really irritate your soul when you go back and look at a game like Week 10 versus the Vikings at home, which all of a sudden home isn't home anymore for the Redskins. We're 2-7 in our last 9 home games, and fans are coming in drones, taking over our stadium. There was a huge conglomerate of Vikings fans in the stands in Week 10. There was an even bigger contingent of Cowboys fans at FedEx Field in Week 8, which isn't a surprise. Anytime we play a team in the NFC East, they usually infiltrate the stadium pretty well. But the Vikings? I mean, how many Vikings fans could there possibly be in the DMV area? Seriously. Yet, there was at least 35, upwards of 40% Vikings fans at that game. And they were loud. I could hear them on television, as I customarily do every time we have a home game. I generally hear the other team's fans. It's ridiculous. But I guess when you don't give your home team things to cheer about, this is what happens. And look, our stadium isn't conducive to keeping out other fans. We've got a huge stadium, a number of seats that are available. Season ticket holders have become jaded. They're selling their tickets. There are a number of tickets available, which allows other teams' fans to come in and get a seat for a relatively cheap price. Bottom line is, that's irrelevant too. The fans not showing up and allowing other teams' fans to infiltrate the stadium isn't the reason Jamison Crowder decided it was okay to drop 4 passes. Isn't the reason Josh Doctson slipped and fell on an easy touchdown grab. Isn't the reason Kirk Cousins missed about 3 big-time shot opportunities down the field, 2 of which would have ended up in touchdowns. Not the reason Josh Norman played arguably his worst game, not just as a Redskin, but as of his career, and dropped a pick that would have stopped a scoring opportunity for the Vikings. Not the reason that Vitamin B had his worst game of the season by far. Not the reason that this defense gave up 35 points in just a shade over 2 quarters of football. Not the reason that the Vikings scored on 6 of their first 7 possessions. Oh, by the way, 5 of which were touchdowns. Oh, and by the way, 5 of 5 in the red zone for one of the worst red zone offenses in all of football. Fans don't have anything to do with that. We did that. So we could talk about injuries. We could talk about lack of depth at some positions now due to the injuries. We could talk about the lack of production from the receiver position. We could talk about the lack of a running game. We could talk about a number of things. You could talk about how Kirk Cousins isn't a franchise quarterback and shouldn't get paid his money. You can say whatever you like. Bottom line is, we're simply not good enough. Not good enough. And this year, we haven't made the plays when plays have been there to be made. We should have beat the Chiefs, but we didn't make the play when it was there to be made. We should have beat the Vikings, but we didn't make the plays that were there to be made. Should have beat the Eagles in week 1. Didn't make the plays that were there to be made. How many times are you going to let Carson Wentz escape your grasp and make a big play? I don't know. Stop asking. So we sit at 4-5 at this point in the season, and now we got to go to New Orleans. That's a death trap if I've ever seen one. They're coming off of their biggest win to date. They're playing with the most confidence they've had all season. They're winners of 7 straight. Their defense is playing. Don't let anybody tell you, because I know there's some people out there trying to convince you otherwise. Just like last week, there were some people trying to convince you that the Vikings weren't good enough offensively. You may have misconstrued what I said, but I told you last week, make no mistake about it, Stephon Diggs, he's a baller. Adam Thielen, he's a baller. I told you, the one guy that I thought we could get to and rattle his cage was Case Keenum. I thought we could get to Case Keenum. I thought we could disrupt him. I thought we could force him into mistakes. And we did. After he threw for 4 touchdowns and had a perfect passer rating. That's when we decided to impact the game and get to Case Keenum. By then, it was too late. We were already down 35-17. This week, we don't stand a chance in hell. I'm going to just come right out. There's no surprise. There's no secret. There's no, I wonder what Louie T thinks we're going to do this week. I'm telling you right off the bat, there's an ass whooping brewing in New Orleans, waiting on us. You remember what we did to the Saints 2 years ago when they came to FedEx and we stunk, couldn't run the football, ran the ball on them, put up like 42 points on their skull? They didn't forget that. Trust and believe. They didn't forget. And they are chomping at the bit to get back at us for what we did to them 2 years ago at FedEx Field. We embarrassed them. It was bad. It was ugly. It was fun. And they're looking at us like food and they're ready to eat. And it's not going to be pretty. So I'm not looking forward to this Saturday or Sunday. I'm not going to lie to you. Obviously, when the game starts, I'm going to be my normal optimistic self, thinking that we're going to win the game. But I know in the back of my mind, I know the truth. we're not going to beat the Saints. And it may get ugly. I'm just glad this isn't a primetime affair, because this one could get out of control. Because our defensive line, and I got a couple of questions for you. So while I'm talking about whatever the hell I'm talking about, I want you to chomp on a couple of questions. Give me some responses. Make sure you use the hashtag LouieTLive, and then we're going to get to some of your comments from the questions that I've asked. Number one, first thing I want to ask you guys is, what is the most disappointing thing to this point in the 2017 season for you with this Redskins football team? What has been the most disappointing thing? That's question one. What has been the most disappointing thing, player, person, whatever, with this Redskins team in 2017 up to this point as we head into the Week 11 matchup versus the New Orleans Saints at 4-5? What has been the most disappointing thing, result, player, coach, whatever? What has been the most disappointing thing this season as we sit here at 4-5 heading into Week 11? Number two, what do you think is this team's biggest deficiency as we sit here at Week 11? What is this team's biggest deficiency as we sit here at Week 11? So first question, what has been the biggest disappointment for you with this team thus far, 11 weeks in? Number two, what is this team's biggest deficiency? And if you want, you can assume health. Assume that this roster is totally healthy. If you like, I don't care. You can look at the roster the way it is, the way it's constructed right now with all the injuries, or you can look at it totally healthy. What is this team's biggest deficiency? And number three, at this point, 4-5, Week 11, what do you think is the best possible scenario for this team finishing up in 2017? So I've given you 3 questions to chew on. Answer any of them, answer all of them, answer whatever you like. I'll be looking for those comments here in a second, but I want to jump into Redskins game notes. I don't have game notes, but just some things that are on my mind. I don't want to do 7-on-7 this week. I want to change it up a little bit. So before we do that, quickly, if you want to donate to the Louie T Network, this is how you do it here through Patreon or PayPal. Those are the links that you see in front of you. The links to those ways that you can donate down in the description. Again, exclusive content starting this week for those of you who qualify. There's a video of how you can get exclusive content on this channel via Patreon. The link is down below in the description of this and every single video that I do, along with ways to donate to the channel. Any donations are greatly appreciated, and I thank you in advance for any donation that you can give to the Louie T Network. And so with that being said, let's jump into Redskins game notes. Redskins game notes. All right, so I just want to quickly kind of briefly go through both sides of the football, talk about some key points, some things that stood out to me in this game, things that I noticed in watching it. And it's not going to vary too much and steer too far away from the R3 if you watch that, because I think I hit a lot of points, a lot of the key points from the game. I hit them pretty well in the R3. I went back and watched because I was really disappointed, and I thought I may have missed a comment or two, or maybe one or two things that I probably should have hit on. I didn't miss much. I do want to start, though, because I didn't talk about Mo Harris and that catch. That was a phenomenal grab. And you can't tell me after he made that catch for a touchdown that you didn't think, hey, we got a legitimate shot at beating these boys. Like, because none of us could have assumed nor predicted that the Vikings were going to score 28 first half points and have 35 after their first possession of the third quarter. Like, nobody saw that coming. Not even Vikings fans thought that was going to be the case. They hadn't scored 30 all year. To think that they were going to just explode against a defense that the week prior was outstanding versus the Seahawks on the road, there was no way you thought they were going to score those kind of points. We didn't think we were going to score 30. I didn't think we were going to score 30. I thought this was a 20s game. First to like 27 would win this game if anyone got there. And so I'm thinking that Mo Harris touchdown early, that's big. That's huge. And they went right down the field and scored right after. But to go back to my original point, it's good to see Mo Harris. And even though I think he only got to play because of the injury to Brian Quick, I think even when Quick comes back from his concussion, Terrell Pryor didn't even get a target in this game. If you didn't pay attention to that, let me tell you that Terrell Pryor didn't even get a sniff in this game. He didn't even get a look. His snaps are dwindling. And I'm going to tell you right now, if Ryan Grant doesn't get the concussion, I don't know if this man has over 7 snaps in this game. I mean, he wasn't going to see the field very much until the Grant injury. So I'm thinking when Grant is available from his concussion, and he may not play this week. We're talking about injuries. D. Hall went down with an injury to his knee. At one point, we looked like we weren't going to have enough safeties in this game. Because remember, no Nick Nasty. He was out with an injury. D. Hall ended up going down with a knee injury. Then DeShazer Everett ended up going down briefly. Didn't know if he was going to be all right. That was nerve-wracking because if he wasn't able to go, don't ask me what we were going to do at safety after that. Do not ask me. I don't know. We might have had to put a cornerback at safety and enter in one of the young fellas like Moreau or Halsey at corner just because we didn't have any more bodies at safety. It was bad. So it got testy there in the secondary, but luckily enough for us, DeShazer Everett was able to come back and pretty much finish out the game for us. But when Grant comes back, when Quick comes back, is Terrell Pryor inactive? And did you hear the rumor that the Browns actually inquired about trading for Terrell Pryor and the Redskins reportedly. And this hasn't been confirmed. So I'm not confirming or denying that this is true. This is just hearsay. But if true, how disappointing is that? That the Browns said, hey, we want our stuff back. And we said, nah, we'll continue to let him rot away on the bench. Thanks anyway. That would be really disappointing if the Browns reached out to the Redskins to see what it would take. I don't give a damn if they were offering a 7th round pick. He's of no value to us. So if he's of value to anybody else, get rid of his ass. 5th, 6th, conditional 7th. I don't give a shit. Get something for him and move on. We're not re-signing him in the offseason. He's not even getting snapped. Kirk's not even looking the man's way. So the receiver position is it's very interesting, to say the least. Jamison Crowder, I thought he had, like I said, a mixed day. You know, ton of drops, made some big plays, but then had some equally back-breaking drops throughout the course of the game. But we're going to need him to step up because of all the receivers. He's the one guy that we look at and we think, look, he's going to have to make plays. Doxson isn't ready to take over a game yet. Crowder can from the slot, though. So we're going to need him to make plays. The run game, I told you last week, when P. Ryan only got, 2 carries? What did I tell you against Seattle? I told you last week, I like P. Ryan. I don't love P. Ryan, and I still stand by my statement when we drafted him. I wasn't in love with the draft pick. I don't hate the player, Samaje Perine. Not like I hate the pick of Ryan Anderson. I hate that pick, and I still do, and I don't know if there's anything that can change my mind. I don't think Ryan Anderson is going to turn out to be anything more than another body at outside linebacker, and you don't draft another body in the 2nd round. You don't do that. So that pick right now is the one that in 2017 is going to piss me off down the road. I can see that. It pissed me off when we made the selection. Everyone tried to talk me out of Ryan Anderson being better than what I thought he was. I know what I saw. In any event, I don't hate the Samaje Perine selection. I just thought there were better options available. And I looked at Samaje Perine and said, we already have one of those on our team. His name is Robert Kelly. We don't need another one of those guys. We needed a faster back with better vision, better feet, the ability to make guys miss. You keep hearing the phrase BYOB, be your own blocker. We needed a guy that could do that. Samaje Perine doesn't make many guys miss by himself. And so I told you last week, though, despite us not drafting Marlon Mack or a guy we're going to see this week in Alvin Kamara, hell, Kareem Hunt in Kansas City, out of Toledo. There were options available. I told you I liked Samaje last week. In only 2 carries, I thought he looked decisive. I thought he looked good in this game, too. Had a nice catch out of the backfield. Nice catch and run. Couple of nice carries in the run game. I thought he looked good. My biggest gripe with him is that he's too big to allow guys to get him down with arm tackles. He's too big, he's too strong, he's too physical for that. He's got to find a way to make guys miss. Too many times, guys are reaching up, grabbing at his ankles, grabbing at his shins and his knee, and he's going down. He's got to find a way to stay on his feet. He's a big guy. But in any event, I thought he did a good job. I don't feel like with Rob Kelly out of the lineup that we're going to see a huge drop-off in the run game from Rob Kelly. As a matter of fact, I think it might get better with P. Ryan. We'll see. But I have confidence in P. Ryan's ability to tote the rock. What I don't have confidence in him in is holding on to the rock. And I think that's the problem that you find yourself having with P. Ryan in the game is, can he not make the mental mistakes? Can he not drop a toss? Can he not fumble the ball? Will he do what he needs to do in protection? Will he get out into the route fast enough to maybe open up a route behind him when he doesn't have to protect? Does he get out into the route and make those linebackers suck up, which opens up routes behind him Does he do the little things? I don't know. But I like him. He's starting to grow on me. Thought he had a solid showing. Offensive line. They were back for the most part. Sans for Spencer Long, who tried to give it a go. He was so slow. They gave him a couple of plays and they realized, nah, Spence, you're not ready yet. There was a toss that had some legs to it. Out to Chris Thompson on the perimeter on the left side, if you can remember. And out of nowhere comes Eric Kendricks. And Spencer Long had the perfect angle, had enough steps to get out there and make the block, and he just could not get there. And Eric Kendricks blew up the entire play because Spencer Long just wasn't quick enough to get there because of the injury. He's got 2 bad knees, not 1, 2 bad knees right now. So they sat him down, put back in Chase Roulier. Brandon Sheriff, not himself right now. I think that 4th and 1 play, Tom Johnson beating him across his face, tackle for loss, which was pretty much the game when we didn't convert on that 4th and 1, on that stretch, run play, that zone stretch to Thompson on the 4th down after we tried to pound it on D.O.A on 3rd and 1, which I hated those successive calls, but that's nor here nor there. If Sheriff makes that block, which we know he can, but he's too banged up to make that block, that's a first down. Whether I like the call or not, he would have gotten a first down if Sheriff makes that block. But he didn't because he's not healthy, which is the story of our team. Trent found a way to get it done. Love that guy. Love the way he battles. Whether he's hurt or he's 100%, he's still shutting guys down. And it helped that Everson Griffin wasn't playing, but still, Daniil Hunter isn't a slouch. He's not mincemeat, chopped liver. Shut him down. So Trent was outstanding. Laval, I'm ready for Ari Kwanjo to get an opportunity for Sean Laval. I'm ready for that to happen, but I don't think it's going to happen. So I'm not going to sit here and cry and beg for them to do something that I've learned with this organization. Don't waste your breath. We saw it with Mac Brown for the last two and a half years. So just stop begging. It's not going to happen. So I'm not going to even waste my breath. Kirk was solid, man. Kirk was good enough to win in this game. You know, even with the interception, Kirk was good enough to win in this game. His supporting cast didn't help him all that much. He could have played much better. I'm not absolving him of wrongdoing in this game. He could have played a lot better. He missed some throws. He wasn't as accurate with some throws that he did complete. That interception was a backbreaker, but we had time. It wasn't like he threw that interception at the end of the game. We had time to overcome that. How about the defense don't give up a touchdown after that interception? How about you force the Vikings to settle for a field goal, and instead of us going into halftime trailing 28-17, it's 24-17. How about that? How about a novel concept of forcing the other team to settle for a field goal? Hey, how about that? How about not giving up 5 touchdowns in the red zone and allowing the other team to go 5 for 5? How about not letting the same damn screen bust your ass 3 times in the game? How about somebody covering Adam Thielen? Hey, how about getting some pressure on Case Keenum? That's a wild idea. How about that? So, no, Kirk didn't play his best game. Yes, Kirk could have played better. Yes, if he made some other throws, maybe the outcome's different. But so would the outcome have been if Josh Doxson doesn't fall. If Vernon Davis doesn't allow Andrew Sendejo to knock the football out of his hands. We ultimately scored on that possession, so I'm not going to beat up VD for that. But Crowder having the ball knocked out of his hand by Andrew Sendejo in the end zone. We didn't score a touchdown on that drive. We had to settle for a field goal on that drive. Make a better throw to Chris Thompson on the 4th and 2. That's a touchdown. He walks in the end zone. Hey, Jay Gruden, we're down 17. We're down 15 at 35-20. It's 4th and 6, 4th and 7. Hey, kick the field goal. What are you doing? It's 4th and 7. We got a ton of time left in this game. Kick the field goal. What are you doing? I love Jay. 3rd and 1. No, don't run. 4th and 1. No, don't run. Don't do that. Anything but that. Don't do that. We're not a good short yardage run team. You know this. So why? I don't understand. I don't understand. So that's just the offensive side of things. You go to the defensive side of the football, and our D-line is ravaged. My God. I saw a guy named Brandon Banks on the field. Did you see that guy? Boy, he looked like he belonged in college football somewhere. He looked like a guy that you would have developing on your practice squad. And that's exactly where he came from. Well, really, we signed him to the practice squad with no intentions of playing him, just bringing him up for depth purposes, but no intentions of him seeing the field. Next thing you know, Anthony Lanier is limping around, barely made it through the game. Terrell McClain was banged up. He left the game at one point. We already are down Matt Ioannidis, Jonathan Allen on that D-line. So now all of a sudden, you look up and Lanier's not healthy, McClain's not healthy, and all you got is Stacy McGee and Ziggy Hood. Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ. What are we supposed to do with that? And I'm sorry for calling your name. I'm so sorry for continuing to call. What are we supposed to do with Ziggy Hood and Stacy McGee? Who in the hell is afraid of those guys? We can't stop the run like that. Then you take Will Compton away, and I actually thought Martrell Spate came in and played his ass off, to be honest with you. I didn't feel like there was much of a drop-off there. You know, in terms of smarts and knowing where to go pre-snap, yeah, you're going to have a drop-off there. But in terms of athleticism, shooting the gap, getting into the backfield, I think you actually gain athleticism by putting Martrell Spate on the football field. Thought he actually came in and gave us a spark at the linebacker position. That being said, God forbid anything happen to Martrell Spate or Zach Brown. What do we do then? Don't ask me. It's bad enough Brandon Banks is now looking like 287 pounds at defensive tackle along the defensive line. God forbid something happened to one of our inside linebackers now. Who are we going to put in the game? What are we going to do? Take Chris Carter and make him an inside linebacker? My gosh, what is going on, man? You got to be kidding me. There was a lack of communication. There was one play on the 3rd down. Zach Brown is in the slot versus Adam Thielen. And first thing I'm saying is, why is he covering Adam Thielen on 3rd and 6 in the slot? And he's looking over at DJ Swearinger, who's trying to tell him what to do in the play. They snap the ball. He's not even ready. Thielen runs a slant. He's just getting out of his stance. And then, my goodness, he makes D. Hall look like he's 57 years old. Runs right past him, a trail of smoke. D. Hall was like, did anybody get the number on that car that just hit me? That almost hit me? Did anybody get, yeah, it was number 19. At that point, I said, somebody go get D. Hall's old ass, please. Somebody go tap him on the shoulder and tell him it's time. Not too long after that, he got injured, so I was just joking. The football guy said, well, don't joke like that. I thought you were serious. He went and tapped the man on his shoulder. I'm like, look, we don't have a lot of depth. I was just kidding. He said, well, don't joke like that with me. I'm not the one to be played with. Lack of communication. Guys running free, wide open. Hell of a double move by Stephon Diggs on Josh Norman, who just had a putrid game. I mean, it is what it is, you know. And then you at the end of the game, you hear DJ Swearinger, who single-handedly tried to will us back into this game with the 2 picks. And DJ, do me a favor, put the football away, please. You almost fumbled that one out of bounds for a touchback. Had you done that, I would have lost my shit. Please don't do that again. Thank you. But in any event, to come out and hear him after the game say, yeah, man, we didn't have a good Friday practice, and I've been saying all season long that we don't have good Friday practices. I don't know if that was a shot or in a dig at Jay Gruden and the coaching staff. I think it was more of a shot at the players, challenging the players and saying, hey, look, we need to take it upon ourselves to be more mentally sharp and focused on Fridays, the last real true practice before the game. But he may have been talking to the coaching staff. He may have been saying, look, I'm putting the onus on you as coaches to force these guys to pay attention, to get the most out of these guys, to make sure that they're mentally sharp enough going into the game, which that is the responsibility of the players, to take it upon themselves to be mentally stimulated and sharp enough to know what's going on. But if the coaches have to intervene and do that, so be it. I'm glad he said what he said, because I think there was an air of, you saw what we did last week to the Seahawks? We've arrived. We got it figured out. And I've always said this about my team. I love my team to death. I love my fellas. I'll ride and die with these boys any day of the week, anywhere, anytime. You name the place, date, I'm there. I'll ride with these boys. We get our ass whoop on primetime television. I'm riding with my boys. I'll take that. I'll eat that. I bleed burgundy and gold blood through these veins. So I know that my team doesn't handle success well. Every year we win the division, what do I always say the following year? Now we're going to have a first place schedule. Now we're going to have a target on our back. All the teams in the division want what we have. How are we going to handle the success of everybody telling us we're good and we're supposed to win? There's a reason that the Redskins perform much better when they're an underdog or prohibitive underdog than when they're actually a favorite. And it's not often that we're a favorite because we're not good enough. But anytime we have a semblance of success, it goes straight to our head. And you saw a semblance of that on defense. And the players admitted it. Ryan Kerrigan came out and said as much. DJ Swearinger, Josh Norman, they all echoed the same sentiments. We didn't come into this game with the focus that we needed. We felt like we had arrived. We dropped the ball. There was not the same laser-like focus that was required that we put in week 9 against Seattle, in week 10 versus the Vikings. And I don't know the reason for that. I don't know if they thought that Case Keenum wasn't going to come in and blaze them. I don't know if they were underestimating Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs, which was a huge mistake if they did. I don't know what the rationale was. I don't know if they said, okay, if we could do that to the Seahawks, then what are the Vikings? They haven't even scored 30 points this year. We're not intimidated by it. I don't know what the rationale was, but it was wrong. Whatever it was wrong. We paid for it. And as I've always said, with our special teams, I just once would like to see our special teams impact the game in a positive manner. Do something. I'm watching teams fake punts. I watched Jacksonville fake a punt. Snapped it to the up man, to the personal protector. Corey Grant, he takes off for a touchdown. 62 yards, 52 yards, touchdown. Watch the Rams fake a punt with their punter throwing a pass. Now, he didn't convert, but they weren't afraid. They weren't scared. I'm watching teams return punts for touchdowns or get great field position off of a nice punt return, nice kickoff return. And I actually thought that Mo Harris didn't do too bad of a job running back kickoffs. Thought he had some nice returns. That being said, can we once be special on special teams? And in a good way, not in a bad way. Because I remember 2 years ago I said, look, don't be special, just be average. Just be average teams. Don't be special teams because we were so bad on special teams. Can we be special for once? Can we do something extraordinary? I guess the best that I can get is Nick Rose kicking a 55, 56-yard field goal. I guess that's the most I'm going to get out of the special teams. And then after doing that and getting all the praise and accolades for banging home a 55, 56-yard field goal, he kicks one of the worst onside kicks we've ever seen in Redskins history. I mean, seriously, what was that? It didn't even go 5 yards. It's got to go 10 for us to even recover it. What was that? get to your comments, man. Let's get to your comments. All right, going to the top. What's up, Rocksteady? Rocksteady the Great says, bad coaching is very, very big issue. I don't think the coaching has been terrible, but there has been some situations that I don't think they've put us in the best positions to win. And that is a problem. You're right. That is an issue. DC Ant 202 says, one thing for sure, if the defense that showed up on Sunday steps into the Superdome with that same energy, the Saints are going to tear them a new ass real quick, real fast. Yeah. Spot on. I couldn't have said it any better myself, Ant. That's real talk. If they come with that same energy, and we know, you keep that same energy when you see me. They keep that same energy. That's going to get out of control quick. We thought that 35 and just a shade over 2 quarters was bad. Those boys might put up 35 in the first half. So I'm hoping that they come with that same energy from week 9 defensively and not the same energy from week 10. Bubba Sis says, I was at the game, and I must say, matter of fact, I have no words. So I guess that's it for us. So much for what I said on here last week. I know you were excited, Bo. So I didn't take what you said last week literally, that we could win 10 games, 11 games, win the rest of the games, and you were all excited, and I get it. But I told you, don't overreact. It was one game. Don't overreact. But you felt good. We all did. But I knew it was just one game, and I knew that it wasn't getting any easier. But despite the disappointment of Sunday, I told you that we needed to go 5-5 over the next 2 games. We needed to win 2 of those games to get to 5-5. Now, I told you I didn't care which 2. I didn't know which 2 it would be. We just needed to win 2. We still got a chance to do that. Now, granted, much like the Seattle game a week ago, you got to go into a hostile environment against a team that probably is going to whoop your ass to do it. But we still got a shot, and that's all you can ask for is a shot. Rocksteady 1974 the Great says, didn't want Rob Kelly to get hurt, but I'm glad he's out so that they have to let someone else play. I kind of agree with that. I didn't want Rob to get hurt either, man. I like him. But I want to see more of Samaj P. Ryan. And if it takes an injury for that to happen, then so be it. That's not what I want. But I wanted to see more Samaj. And you know, with this coaching staff, it takes injuries for guys to get opportunities. Maurice Harris would still be on the practice squad right now if not for injuries to Brian Quick and basically Brian Quick. He'd still be on IR. And Jamison Crowder and them not knowing what they were going to get out of Jamison Crowder. He'd probably still be on IR. On practice squad. It takes injuries for us to get results from other players on this roster with this coaching staff. SW Mike says, are we on Code Red? Yeah. We're on Code Red for sure. You know what? No, we're not on Code Red. This is the same thing that I said with Seattle. We're on Code Red. Unfortunately, we're on Code Red. But if you're talking playoffs, if you're talking about having a respectable season, no, we're not on Code Red. But if you're talking about playoffs, which is all you should be talking about, then yeah, this is pretty much Code Red. You don't want to put yourself in a position where you got to win the last 6 games just to even have a shot to make it to the playoffs. And oh, by the way, at 10-6, you're probably going to end up tied with somebody, and you're not going to win tiebreakers if you can't beat some of the other teams in the NFC. We're already 0-3 in the division, which means we're 0-3 in the conference just from the standpoint of the division. We just lost to the Vikings, so that's 0-4. We beat the Rams, that's 1-4. We beat the Seahawks, that's 2-4. We beat the Raiders. That's not a conference game, so that's our 3rd win. And who else did we beat? We beat the Raiders, Rams, Seahawks, 49ers. So we're 3-4 in the conference right now. 3-4 with our 1 loss outside of the conference coming to the Chiefs. So that means we've still got 2 games outside of the NFC, so that's not going to help us in a tie-break situation. So this game is important for just the fact to get back to 500, to give you just a slim margin of error for the remainder of the season. And it's a key pivotal game because you never know. The Saints might be the team that we end up tied with at the end of the season at 10-6. And you might need that head-to-head tiebreaker. So, yeah. This is code red, unfortunately. Boba Sis says, in case you don't remember what I said, that we win the next 3, boy, do I look foolish now. No, you don't look foolish. You were in the moment. You felt confident. It wasn't out of the realm of possibility. I thought we were going to beat the Vikings. Remember, I predicted on this show that I thought we would win. I thought that defensively we'd be good enough, and offensively I thought we'd be good enough, and we were offensively good enough in the game to win. We scored 30 against that Vikings defense. That should be enough to win. 30 should be enough to win on most weeks. Matthew Lynch says, I was at the Cowboys game and it was 70% Cowboys. It felt like it on television, but, you know, I chalked that one up to inclement weather and the fact that, you know, our fan base isn't one that's going to, we're not a diehard enough fan base anymore to the point where we're sticking it out in inclement weather. It was wet. It was cold. The Cowboys fans wanted it more than we did. So, you know, I chalked it up to that, but that's been the trend and the theme with this team is that we allow the opposing team's fans to come in and infiltrate our stadium. And then when we start losing at the end and it looks bleak, they take over the stadium, all the Redskins fans leave, and those teams' fans stay, and it becomes even more apparent, and it's ridiculous. It's really getting to the point now where we don't have a home field advantage anymore. Almost to the point now where we're a better road team. And technically speaking, I think we've won, 2 games at home, 2 games on the road. So you could argue that we are better on the road this year. Because we've won against the Rams and the Seahawks, 2 of the best teams in the NFC on the road. And we won at home against 2 of the lesser teams in the league, in the Raiders and the 49ers at home. All the other home games, Eagles, Cowboys, Vikings, we lost. So it's really disappointing. Reese says, sup, Lou? Thought Terrell Pryor would be a weapon for you guys, but he's been a ghost. We all did. You know, that's been one of the more disappointing parts of the season is we needed a guy. Whether it was him or Doxson, we could care less. We needed a guy to step up at receiver, and really, no one stepped up, including Jamison Crowder. I think he's actually taken a step back. He's dealt with injuries this year, but he was phenomenal last year. He's taken a huge step backwards. SW Mike says that Kirk Cousins interception really hurt us. That's when I knew we lost the will to win this game and that they got the ball back in the second half. I wasn't confident at the fact that they got the football to start the second half either because we hadn't done anything to stop them up until that point in the game. And so in my mind, I'm saying they're probably going to score at worst a field goal after halftime. Well, they went down and made it look easy. 4 or 5 plays, maybe 6 max, straight into the end zone, touchdown. And it was 35-17. Reese says Kirk was sharp in the beginning. He was 10 of 10 in his first 10 passes. Yeah, he was outstanding to start the game off. And he was solid. Like I said, it just... He didn't make enough plays. We didn't make enough plays as a collective group, offensively or defensively. But, yeah, he started off hot, for sure. Nathan Long says, as a Saints fan, I'm actually worried about this game. The Redskins record doesn't tell the full story. You all are a much better team than people give you credit for. We know that. We understand that we're a much better team than our record reflects. But Bill Parcells once famously said, you are what your record says you are. And we're 4-5. And that's the mark of an inconsistent football team that doesn't know how to win consistently. And so while we are a scary team, we can be dangerous in any given week. And you've heard the mantra, any given Sunday. That pretty much speaks volumes as to what we are as a football team. Any given Sunday, we can beat any team in this league. But that being said, I don't have any confidence in our ability to go on the road and beat a red-hot New Orleans Saints team. I don't see it happening. You should be nervous. I would be if I were you guys, just because I'm nervous about every damn game. So you're probably just nervous because you don't want to tell yourself we're supposed to win, and then all of a sudden you guys come out and are flat and allow the Redskins to walk in there and steal one. You want to have yourself on edge, as you want your players to be, not assuming anything, going out and playing the Redskins as if they're the New England Patriots. And I think your team's going to do that. Dominic Garland says, we might get Matt back. Are you referring to Matt Jones? Who are you talking about? Des Got Game 421 says, this might sound crazy, but do you think the Skins should consider trading Jordan Reed in the offseason due to him being injured in multiple games every season? No, I don't think so. I mean, this is the thing. This is a league in which the tight end position is becoming a bigger and bigger part of the offense. If you've got a mismatch at the tight end position, you've got a chance to do big things in the passing game. He's a mismatch, and I get it. He's not healthy for at least 4 games every year. That's minimum. He's going to miss at least 4 games. Seems like every year. Some years even more than that, obviously. But he's a big asset to this football team when he's healthy. All right. Now, if someone were to offer up a ridiculous package for his services, you'd have to entertain the thought. But other teams know his injury history as well. And if you trade him, they're going to throw in a clause that says, hey, we'll trade you a 3rd-round pick, but it's a conditional 3rd-round pick that you only get that 3rd-rounder if Jordan Reed plays in 13 games this upcoming season. And if he doesn't, then that 3rd-rounder goes to a 5th. Is Jordan Reed not worth more than a 5th-round pick to you? Because you know he's not going to play in 13 games. You're well aware of that. He's more, and I say it like this. Jordan Reed is like a used car that you paid off, okay? It's your car. You paid for it. You paid off the car note 4 years ago. You've had the car for 7 years now. You could sell it for the Kelley Blue Book value, but that car is worth more to you than you going out and getting a new car note. It's worth more than the $1,500 that you could get for it by selling it to somebody else. Because you're going to incur a brand new car note when you could have, and your car still works fine. Jordan Reed still works fine when he's healthy. So is it worth a 5th-round pick to trade Jordan Reed to somebody else? He's worth more than a 5th-round pick to us. Do you get what I'm saying? So that's not a crazy idea on your part. I just don't think the value is there in trading Jordan Reed. I don't think we're going to get back in return what he can offer for us when he's healthy. That's why I don't think that's a good idea. Cole Hunt says Terrell Pryor has been really disappointing. Okay, so that's Cole Hunt's most disappointing thing from the season. Michael Graham says it's been the loss of Sean McVay. His most disappointing thing is the loss of Sean McVay. And I talked about that at the beginning of the year, how we talked about Pierre and Deshaun. I said the biggest loss of the season might be Sean McVay. And I don't know if that has been the case. I think Jay's been fine with his play calling. There have been a couple of stretches where I haven't agreed with him necessarily, but we miss Pierre Garçon more than anybody else in my mind. But Sean McVay's loss has been detrimental to this team as well. SW Mike says the most disappointing thing that happened this season is all the injuries and losing to the Cowboys 3 times in a row. And that always sucks. And those injuries have been debilitating to this roster and this football team. Daddy Smokes Yam says, most disappointing thing is the injuries when it seemed like we had some potential. I think that Chiefs game was the beginning of the end for this football team. the injuries started in week 3 with the Raiders game, but we won that game so decisively, and we were still relatively healthy coming out of that game. We did lose some bodies in that game. You know, there were a couple of casualties that we didn't even know about, like Ty and Seki that came out of that game. But it was that Chiefs game on a Monday night where we really started to see bodies amassing and the injury list starting to compile. And that, I think that was, even in a loss, that was the most hope that we had as Redskins fans. Was when we lost that game. We were on cloud 9 after the Raiders game, but when we lost to the Chiefs, we knew we let one slip away, and we said, hey, we just played with one of the best teams in the league. We're good. We're damn good. And then the injuries just ravaged us. It just ravaged us. So I'd agree with you guys that have said the injuries probably been the most disappointing thing for me as well. John Niner says, you should have hired Sean McVay. Look at the Rams. You know, hindsight is 20/20. You know, I didn't want to get rid of Jay Gruden. I didn't want Sean McVay to go, but it was either McVay or Gruden, and you couldn't just fire Gruden. I mean, obviously you could, but why? I mean, I still believe in Jay Gruden as a head coach. I do. Jose Martin says Terrell Pryor is his most disappointing thing this season. Mark Block says consistency and D-line and health are the most disappointing and the biggest concern with this team as of right now. Bubba says my most disappointing thing would be among the NFC's best with the record of 7-2. He says most disappointing thing, that would be among the NFC's best with the record of 7-2. Okay, I get what you're saying. That we really don't have a shot because the NFC is so strong, essentially, is what he's saying. And he says, and our biggest deficiency is coaching. Gruden can't simply elevate this team to new heights. I want to argue with you, but there isn't any tangible proof that Jay Gruden can elevate this team. So while I really like Jay Gruden, I think he's a very smart play caller, dials up some really good things, puts guys, in most instances, he puts guys in positions to win. He does. It's a lack of execution. Run game, pass game, it's a lack of execution most times. But for some reason, we haven't been able to get it done. And if you want to blame Gruden for that, I can't disagree. Daddy Smoke Yam says, check that. Biggest disappointment has to be the receiving core, and that also has to be the biggest deficiency as well. I can see how that could be the answer to both of those, for sure. I would say the biggest deficiency for me right now is a combo of receiver and running back. I think a difference-making back would really change the dynamics of this offense, because for as bad as you all think we are, and I go back and I watch these games, excuse me, the all-22s, and for as bad as you guys may think the run blocking is, I'm going to be honest with you, most weeks, it's actually not that bad. And if we had a better back with better feet and better vision, our run game would be a lot more prolific than what it's been this season and even last season. Despite not having great blocking tight ends, I think there are more yards to be had in the run game than our backs get because of their lack of vision, lack of feet, and the inability to make guys miss. Andre P. Musgrove says, these wide receivers have to be the most disappointing thing to this point. They looked unstoppable in training camp videos. It really looked as if though they were going to be big, just didn't shake out. Yeah, I think back to those training camp clips we got of Terrell Pryor, one hand in the football, mossing on guys in camp. That was all a facade. And really, it was always without pads on. I mean, he told you he looks like Tarzan, plays like Jane, and you got to remember, this is an ex-quarterback we're talking about. He's not used to getting hit. And so, you know, we've seen him alligator arm the football a number of times. It's just not in the cards for us with Terrell Pryor. Matthew Lynch says, One, the lack of consistency on defense has been the most disappointing thing for him. Number two, the running back position. I agree with you. I think that would be my biggest deficiency on this roster right now, because I think a difference-making back would really change the dynamics of this offense greatly. I really believe that wholeheartedly. And three, he says, finishing 5-2, losing to the Saints and Cowboys is the best case scenario he sees for this team. And finishing 5-2 would put us at 9-7 for the season. And I honestly believe that that is probably an accurate statement. I think I said before the season that our best case scenario this year was 9-7, and the worst case was 7-9. We weren't going to be any worse than 7-9. I didn't think we would be any better. I said if the ball bounces our way, we could win 10 games, but I thought we were a 9-7 team, and I think Matthew may be pretty much spot on there. I don't necessarily know if the two losses have to come to the Saints and Cowboys, but I think we got a shot to finish up the season 5-2. And if you told me we were going to lose 2 games in these final 7, those would be the 2 teams I'd say we'd lose to. So I pretty much agree with your number 2 and number 3 statement, pretty much spot on. Number 1 for me would be the injuries and how they have just shaped and molded the outcome of this season to this point. Brian Forrester, make sure you use the hashtag LouieTLive. Come back with that comment. Use the hashtag. Travis B says, you got to be mad when the Vikings skull chant was louder than the Redskins fans. I actually heard that on TV. That's when I knew it was bad. I knew it was bad, and then they gave a shot of the Vikings fan yelling skull at the end of the third going into the fourth quarter, and that's when I said, wow, it's really bad. Cole Hunt says the biggest deficiency is mental errors. Boba says we're going to suck the rest of the way. I may be done watching football for the rest of the season. Don't do that, Bo. Don't give up on the squad like that, man. You got to watch to the finish, because once it's gone, you're going to miss these fellas for 6 months. Don't cheat yourself. You may be frustrated and they may disappoint you on some weeks. Don't ever give up on the fellas, man. And like I said, enjoy them while they're here, because whether we go 7-9, 8-8, or 9-7, after this season, Kirk may be gone, and we may suck for the next 3-4 years. So you better enjoy this product while you got it. FBG Tony says, biggest disappointment, wide receiver core in general. Josh is still learning. Pryor is trash. JC Ice is about to lose his nickname. And only true good spot is Mo Harris in week 10. Yeah, the wide receiving core has really been a huge disappointment, especially losing 2,000-yard receivers. We needed somebody to step up, anybody. And no one has stepped to the forefront at the receiver position. Boba says, for crying out loud, we lost to Case Keenum. Enough said, man. I mean, we made Case Keenum look like Aaron Rodgers. I mean, it was terrible, man. Case Keenum had 4 touchdown passes, no INTs, and a 158.3 passer rating. For those of you who aren't aware, that's a perfect passer rating. And at the end of this game, Case Keenum had the best overall total QBR any quarterback has put forth this season. That goes for Brady, Rodgers, anybody you can think of at the quarterback position this season. Wentz. Case Keenum outdid them all with his QBR in this game against our Skins. That's how bad we were defensively. SW Mike says, not being able to get 12 wins this season. From the beginning of the season, I told you the fellas, he said, I told the fellas to make it to 12 wins, and now we were, and now look where we are now. I never thought 12 wins was possible. Even at my highest level of optimism this season, 12 was never in the conversation. FBG Tony says, we have 0 chance against the Saints unless 3 things happen. I'm waiting for those 3 things. Travis B says, Linval Joseph was hitting people like they owed him money. Yeah, he knocked Ryan Grant out of the damn game. Daniel Primrose says, our biggest deficiency is a lack of speed and athleticism on defense and offense. We have no playmakers, no game changers. We've had less speed on both sides of the football in past years, especially defense. With Zach Brown adding the amount of speed he's added, and with Monte Nicholson, when he's healthy, adding speed into that secondary, I think we've got plenty of speed at those positions. I'd love to see an elite dynamic edge rusher, but we've been crying and screaming for one of those for over a decade now. So it'd be nice to add more team speed. I agree. Especially at running back. I've been dying for a speedster at the running back position. We just couldn't seem to get one. FBG Tony says, we have so the three things are, we have a miracle effort on defense. Kirk has an extraordinary game and 0 mistakes. We are screwed, Skins fans. So those are his 3 keys to the game if we're going to have any shot at winning. Rock Steady says, I'm sick and tired of Jay Gruden continuing to play people that don't get the job done. Again, I can't defend Jay there. For too many weeks, going back to last year, we've seen guys that didn't deserve the snaps that they were getting and not making a change when it was there to be made. So I can't defend Jay on that either. That's something that I think he's had an issue with, is sticking with players too long. At some point, you got to admit that guys aren't getting it done and give somebody else a chance. HTTR Chris says, about Ryan Anderson, found it interesting how everyone called him a football player. That is usually the best way to describe a guy that doesn't have one redeeming trait. When you can't find one thing about the guy that stands out, you just throw the blanket statement over him. He's a football player. Now, in certain instances, when you hear that, the guy is really a football. Like Christian McCaffrey, he's really a football player. Like, I saw him throw a hell of a block that sprung Devin Funchess for a touchdown last night on Monday Night Football. I saw him droop the draws off of a dude going into the end zone for a touchdown on a run. And then I seen him break a guy off at receiver for a receiving touchdown. He's a football player. Sometimes that moniker actually fits. But when you don't have one redeeming trait, it's easy to just say, hey, he's a football player. No one's going to question you when you say, hey, he's not fast. He's not overly athletic. He's a little physical in the run game. Hell, we can find anybody to be physical in the run game. But hey, he's a football player though. What are you going to say? And when Ryan Anderson shows up and the first thing he says out of his mouth is, I don't care about the combine. Just turn the tape on. I say, yeah, you would say that. You're not fast. You're not athletic. Yeah, you might bust some skulls in the run game. We got dudes that do that already. How about getting to the quarterback? He's not going to do that very often. But to finish up Chris's statement, he said, I found it interesting how everyone called him a football player and Scott McLuhan type. But even Scott came out and said he would have taken Tim Williams over him. That was the better play because Tim was more explosive as an edge rusher, which is what we need. We're lacking explosiveness off the edge. I would have taken 3 different guys, including Carl Lawson, Tim Williams, or Terrell Basham over Ryan Anderson. Any of those 3 guys before we took him. We made a mistake. And this reminds me, this smells like Trent Murphy all over again. And Trent was starting to come into his own before the PED suspension and then the subsequent tearing of his ACL. But this smells like another Trent Murphy second round wasted draft pick. Because you're not going to get what you're supposed to get out of a second round pick out of Ryan Anderson. I don't think. And it's still early. He's a rookie. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. But I don't think I'm wrong. Reese says, I love watching Chris Thompson. Dude can play, one of the more underrated players in the league. Absolutely. FBG Tony says, P. Ryan has to be a little better at the little things, and I agree with you on that, fam. FBG Tony says, these front office idiots are ruining the season during the offseason, getting rid of Scotty Mack, not keeping PG88, and etc. Now, I've heard a lot of people say that Pierre didn't even want to be back. And after listening to Pierre badmouth the organization and the media, I don't know if he wanted to be back in DC either. Now, money talks and everything else walks. And if we would have stroked that same check the Niners stroked, maybe he's back in DC right now. But I knew we weren't going to pay him the kind of money he got in San Francisco, one. And two, I'm not sure he even wanted to be here. You can't force a guy to want to be somewhere that he doesn't want to be. With Scott McCloughan, it is what it is. I mean, I'm over that situation. We put him up on this high pedestal. This is the same guy that thought Matt Jones was going to be an extraordinary running back, the second coming of beast mode in this league. So you look at the drafts he had for us. Look back at those drafts. There are not many players left from those drafts. So as much as I like Scott, it's not like he was knocking it out of the park himself. So, I mean, it is what it is. Redskins Review says, I'm waiting for special teams to step up. When's the last time we had a kick return past the 50? I mean, the last impactful return in any aspect, punt or kickoff, was, I think, Jamison Crowder against the Ravens for a touchdown last year. We may have had another return of substance somewhere after that, but that's the last one that I can remember having an impact on the game. We don't do any, and that's what I said. We don't do anything on special teams. Our special teams is far from special. Redskins Review also says, I know you were a huge fan of Alvin Kamara, and what has Ryan Anderson done? We could have had Kamara and then gotten Anderson in the third, man. He would have still been there. I agree, Redskins Review. He would have still been there, sitting there waiting for somebody to take his ass in the third round because nobody else was going to take him. Maybe the Ravens would have took him. He seems like a Baltimore Raven type of player. A physical, roughhousing player. Good. Take your ass to Baltimore. Fit in with the rest of those guys. We needed dynamic football players, and I didn't give a damn if it was offense or defense. I wanted difference makers. I wanted dynamic. I didn't want another caveman. We've got enough of those on the roster. We've got plenty of cavemen, tough guys that'll take on a block. That's great. I don't need more of those. We need more playmakers. Alvin Kamara is a playmaker. He's a playmaker. There were other guys in this draft that are playmakers. Marlon Mack is a playmaker. We could have gotten our hands on a much more diverse, dynamic back or edge rusher. And we chose two guys that in the grand scheme of things, I think are going to be solid NFL players. Nothing more, nothing less. And Ryan Anderson and Samaje Perine. And that's frustrating. FBG Tony says, the defensive effort was pitiful. Jay Gruden was smoking crack with play calling and not taking points in an ass whipping. He's got to take points. I thought that he felt like the game was more out of control than what it was. There was still plenty of time. And the thing that he should have taken into consideration, we were moving the football. We just were doing dumb stuff and it was resulting in us not scoring touchdowns. But we were moving the ball. Now, the only thing I would say, and he might have been thinking this in his head, is we can't stop them. So field goals aren't going to help us. They're going to score 50 at the rate that they're going. So me kicking a field goal probably isn't going to help our cause any. But you got to take the points in that situation, Jay. HTTR Chris says, one of my biggest takeaways from that game was that there was no competition at free safety. When Nick Nasty is healthy, he should start over D-Hall, no questions asked. Well, D-Hall's banged up. And in my mind, that wasn't a question either. And I actually heard an interview in which D-Hall said that he thinks that he would be the starter if the two were healthy. And I think it was just because of how well he played in the Seahawks game. But Nick Nasty gives us more in the secondary. He can cover more ground. Even if he makes a mistake, he can cover more ground with his makeup speed. He's a much more physical enforcer back there, which is probably why he's got two banged up shoulders at this point. But I take Nick Nasty in a hurry over anybody else back there along with Swearinger. You know, those are the two that need to be starting when it's all said and done. All right, let's get to I'll try to come back. I see a lot more comments. I'll try to come back to some comments. Let's go bow and go real quick. Let's put this game behind us and move on. Redskins bow and go. All right, so Vikings game was disappointing. I felt like we lost to a better team, but we didn't have to. It wasn't one of those games that no matter what we did, we weren't going to win because the Vikings were just better. We didn't execute as well as they did. They out-executed us. They outplayed us in certain aspects of the game. I thought our offense went tit for tat with their offense. The difference was they went 5 for 5 in the red zone. We went 2 of 4 in the red zone. That's the difference in the game. When there were opportunities for Case Keenum to hit deep balls down the field to Thielen and to Stephon Diggs, he didn't miss. Kirk did. When there was opportunities for guys to make spectacular catches in the end zone for touchdowns, when Stephon Diggs ran a pivot route on vitamin B, he didn't slip and fall like Josh Doxson did and give up an easy touchdown. When Case Keenum threw the football to Adam Thielen in the end zone and asked him to stretch out and make a diving play in the end zone for a touchdown, he did. He didn't allow somebody to knock the football out of his hands, resulting in a field goal. They made plays. We didn't. When Kirk Cousins airmailed Jamison Crowder right before the half, Mackenzie Alexander picked the football off and put him in a position to score more points. Josh Norman dropped that same pass Case Keenum threw, and that resulted in a touchdown for the Vikings. They made the plays. We didn't. Your end result, 38-30. Jay Gruden could have been better in certain instances with play calling and decision-making, taking a field goal when it was there, maybe not going for a run on 3rd and 1, not going for a run on 4th and 1. Yeah, different things could have played out differently. Maybe this game turns out differently. But at the end of the day, their coaching staff out-coached our coaches. I felt like offensively, they were one step ahead of our defense the entire day. We come on a blitz, they run a screen. It's 3rd and long. We got them right where we want them. They run a screen. They had our number all day long. We were out-coached. We were outplayed. We were out-executed. We were out-schemed. We lost. It's time to move on to the New Orleans Saints, a team that right now is as hot as any team in the league, not named the Philadelphia Eagles, winners of 7 straight, coming off of the ass thrashing of the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo, 47-10. Unfortunately, let's move on to the go portion of this bow and go. So, I'm not looking forward to this. I'm not going to lie to you, but every week is a new challenge. And this is one of the biggest challenges we've faced all season long on the road against arguably the hottest team in all of the National Football League. They've got a brand new identity. They can run it. They ran for 298 last week. Let me repeat that. They ran for 298 yards last week. We don't look like a team that can stop the run right now. I just told you that the defensive line is in shambles. Okay? Jonathan Allen's not coming back. Matt Ioannidis is about a week or 2 away from coming back. Anthony Lanier could barely walk at the end of last game. I don't even know what the hell is wrong with Terrell McClain. Okay? The 2 healthiest bodies along the defensive line are Ziggy Hood and Stacy McGee. That's not going to help us. Hell, the guy that we signed that actually played half decent 2 weeks ago against the Seahawks, Arthur Jones, who we signed off the street, he even got hurt and we put him on IR in the same damn game in which we signed him for. That's been our luck this year with injuries. The guy that we just signed for the defensive line to give us some depth gets hurt in his first game. Has to go on IR. We're thin everywhere. So, I'm not looking forward to this. I thought the Vikings ran the football very effectively on us. They didn't kill us on the ground, but they ran the football well enough to stay very balanced to keep the pressure off of Case Keenum. The Saints have a big, physical, hulking offensive line that reminds me a lot of what Dallas did. A lot of high draft picks invested in that offensive line. They've got 2 first rounders on that line, and Teron Armstead is a 3rd rounder that plays like a 1st rounder. And Max Unger has been as solid a center in this league when healthy as you can get. And Calamete has been exceptional at right guard. Their offensive line across the board is just as good as Dallas is in terms of the run game. When those guys are clicking on all cylinders, they're moving people. We're in trouble, just so you know. I could sit here and talk to you about keys to the game, what we need to do to find a way to win. It's all of the same stuff we've been saying all year. Don't turn the football over. Got to be better on 3rd downs defensively. Got to be better on 3rd downs offensively. Can't give up 5 for 5 in the red zone if the Saints make it into the red zone. Got to force them to kick some Will Lutz field goals. We can't go 2 or 4 in the red zone when we get there. We got to score touchdowns. Field goals don't win games. Touchdowns do. You know the mantra. You know the motto. You know the rules to the game. Then play. I mean, it's all the same stuff we've been saying all season long. Receivers are going to have to step up and make plays. We're going to have to protect Kirk. We're going to need to run the football effectively to keep that Saints defense from being over-aggressive. Chris Thompson is going to have to be a huge part of this game. We're going to need the receivers to step up. I don't care if it's Crowder, Mo Harris, Josh Doxson. I don't give a damn who it is. We're going to need guys to step up. It'd be nice to get Jordan Reed back in this game. Be really nice. I'd like to think that he's going to play this week. And we're going to need him to stay healthy and be effective in this game. It'd be really nice to get him back and have him have a big game this week. Defensively, got to get pressure on Drew Brees. First things first, you got to stop the run. Damn stopping Drew Brees. That's not even what the Saints are about anymore right now. They're about running the football down your throat, imposing their will and taking your spirit and will to fight in a game by running the football down your throat. Similar to what the Cowboys did to us 2 weeks ago when Ezekiel Elliott ran it for $150 on us, down our throat. That's what they want to do to us in this game. We got to stop the run first. We don't stop the run, we don't stand a chance. Point blank, end of discussion. Then, if you do stop the run, it'd be nice to get some pressure on Drew Brees. I don't see that happening. I really don't. Not without us blitzing. And then if you blitz, you leave the secondary exposed. And after what we saw last week, how confident are you in leaving the secondary out there to drop? I still got confidence. I think it was a bad game by the secondary, but I still got confidence in Vitamin B and J-No out on the corners with Fuller in the slot. I still got confidence that those guys can match up with anybody's receivers one-on-one across the board. It was a bad week last week. I think we get Nasty Nick back in the secondary this week. So we may be getting healthier in certain spots, but it may be all for naught. The Saints are pretty much healthy across the board, and they're dominating folks. And this is as daunting a task as it was to go into Seattle and win, except this offense, to me, is way better than Seattle's. Seattle's defense, granted, was better. And to me, that environment in Seattle, tougher to play in than the Superdome. But I think this team overall better than the Seahawks. And that's why I don't think we stand a chance in hell in this game. Let's get to some comments, though, before we get to the final outcome. All right. FBG Tony says, Adam Thielen obliterated our secondary in a one-man show. He did. Travis B says, Daniel Snyder is a damn billionaire. Why won't he spend the money to get the field fixed? How many players have to go down before he gets it fixed? The field has been better of late. You know, the field hasn't been as big an issue. 2015 was that field at its worst. It was like the players were playing in sand. We saw many a guy go down there. You would love to see them get the field in better condition, but it's serviceable. It's a lot better than what it was 2 years ago. Mark Block says the defense was sleepwalking. They damn sure were. And it took them basically 4 quarters to wake up. And at that point, it was basically too late. Jonas McConan says P-Ron needs the rock more often. Talked about that earlier, and I think he's going to get it a lot more in this upcoming game. Mark Block says the only good thing, the Vikes only scored 3 points in the second half. And some of that was their own doing. Case Keenum sloppy with the football. And then we were able to put together some drives that ate up some clock. And they were more so playing the clock than the scoreboard at that point. I think if they wanted to, they could have scored more. Not to say that they turned it off, but they were more consumed with like they had a 13-play, 40-yard drive that ate up 7 minutes of the clock that resulted in a 53-yard Kai Forbath field. And I was begging Kai to miss, because if he misses that field goal, it's an 8-point game. I think we're coming back. I said, Kai, you were never good from 53 with us. Missed the damn kick. Kai says, hey, I ain't that guy no more, man. Remember we used to say Kai is your guy, our guy. Your guy, my guy, our guy, Kai. He says, well, I'm not your guy anymore. I'm their guy. And I'm good from 53. Said, you get out of here, you damn bastard. And he knocked it in. And they didn't have a drive that they scored a touchdown on that was over 7 plays in this game. Okay? Most of their drives were explosive, quick, bing, bang, boom, 4, 5, 6 play drives. Touchdown. 13 plays, 40 yards, 7 minutes of the fourth quarter clock eaten up to kick a 53-yard field goal. They weren't trying to score anymore. They were playing the clock. So, it is what it is. Cole Hunt says, we are going to play some players we passed on in Michael Thomas and Kamara. Michael Thomas was a second-round pick, right? I don't know if we were in the market for a second-round receiver after drafting Dotson in the first round. So that one doesn't sting as much as Kamara does. Falcons Fury says, if you are just outside of the playoffs but you beat everyone ahead of you, head-to-head, how are your chances of making it? Great. If you finish tied with those teams, because the biggest thing that matters is head-to-head. So if you beat all the teams that are ahead of you, and then you finish 10-6 at the end of the season, and so do they, you win the tiebreaker. And you go to the playoffs and they don't. So if you were to beat the Saints, let's say you sweep the Saints, and you finish up the season at 10-6, and so do the Saints, and the Panthers finish up 11-5. Panthers win the division, but you two guys are battling it out. But because you swept them, you go to the playoffs at 10-6, and they don't. Same thing could be said for the Vikings. You play the Vikings, you beat them head-to-head. They finish up the season 10-6. You finish up the season 10-6. You go to the playoffs, they don't. If it comes down to head-to-head, so that's the way that works. FBG Tony says, we are code-uffed, not beating this team with the way we played in Week 10. It's a week-to-week league, man. You can't go off of what we did in Week 10. We're just not good enough to beat the Saints. Has nothing to do with the way we played in Week 10. We're just not a good enough team to beat the Saints in New Orleans. I think that's what it has more to do with than anything else. Jolt Warrior says, do the Skins have another run in them? Seems like 05 going late in the season runs are the norm for us to even sniff the playoffs. Yeah, but the difference is in those seasons, the NFC was vulnerable and weak. You could sneak in the back door at 9-7, 10-6. You're not sneaking in the back door this year. Either you're coming in through the front, the legit way, or you're not getting in. There's no backdoor entrance to the playoffs in the NFC this year. I already told you, I think somebody might get left out at 10-6. Like 10-6 doesn't even guarantee you a playoff spot. Now, the beauty in the NFC is that a lot of these teams are about to start destroying each other. The Rams have to play the Saints. The Saints have to play the Vikings. The Vikings have to play the Rams. The Eagles got to play the Rams. A lot of these teams got to play each other down the stretch. So they're going to start annihilating each other, and losses are going to start compiling. But you've got to hope that one or two teams just hit a rut. Like, you don't want the Rams to win this week, but then lose next week, but then win the week after that. The Vikings lose this week, but then win. You don't want it to be 1 week, next week, 1 week, next. You want them to hit a 4-game skid. You want somebody to hit a skid. That's the only way you're going to get in. If everybody's winning one, losing one, then everybody's going to end up around 10-6, 11-5. And that's not conducive to a team like the Redskins who need to win like 6 out of their final 7 to even have a shot to get in. FBG Tony says, we're going 8-8 at best. Average ass team. I can't disagree with that. Merle Davis says, Norman had a bad game because no pass rush. Case Keenum was in the recliner in the pocket. D-line injuries killing us. Losing Jonathan Allen was huge. Amen. Everything you said. Now, Norman had a bad game, not just because of the lack of rush, but he just had a bad game. But Keenum had all day to throw. The D-line is in shambles, and Jonathan Allen's injury was arguably one of the biggest injuries we sustained this season on the defensive side of the football. Jonas McConan says, because of our difficulty of our schedule, we are probably going to sweep the NFC West. Our chances of winning a tie for the wild card is high, but we first need to get there. I don't know that to be a fact. We've got the Cardinals, obviously, and we've already beat the 49ers, the Seahawks, and the Rams. So we could sweep the West. That'll give us 4 wins in the conference, but our division record stinks. If we don't sweep the Giants and beat the Cowboys, our divisional record, and we need to beat the Saints, to be honest with you, our divisional record is going to end up pretty nasty. It's not going to be good enough. If we would have been better off losing to the entire AFC West, but doing damage in our division and in the conference games, then potentially going, 2-2? We got a chance to go 2-2. We got a chance to go 3-1 in the West because we already beat the Raiders, and we got a chance to beat the Broncos and the Chargers later on in the season. So we just got to win games. We can't worry about anything. We just got to win games. Let the chips fall where they may. You put yourself in a position where you're asking teams to do dirty work. I told you, you want something done, you got to do it yourself. We had a chance to do it ourselves. We didn't do it. So Falcons Fury says, when is the last time you went to a Redskins game? Don't be the problem, solve it. Oh, wait, I ain't been to a Falcons game in a year. Damn shame. I don't really go to Redskins games. I haven't been to a Redskins game in quite some time, like 4 years, maybe 4 or 5 years. It's been a while. I want to go to some games, but I'm so busy. You know, like I said, when I am able to get to a point where I don't have to go to work on Monday, or I don't have to break down all the other games in the league because I can go to a game and report live from a game. When I'm able to do some of the things I want to do on this channel via more revenue coming in, whether it be because of you guys chipping in with contributions and donations, or different revenue streams that I'm trying to come up with, whatever the case may be, when I'm able to make this my full-time job, I'll be able to do things like go to more Redskins games. But for the time being, I don't have that ability to do that. So until I can, I'm relying on the rest of the Redskin faithful to go out and support the fellas and make noise and try to make it a disadvantage for opposing teams. And we're not doing that, Jonah Ronberg says, I got season tickets for this season. He said, I got season tickets. Shaking my head. We need Pryor to be good again. I think that ship has sailed, man. They're not even throwing him the football anymore. Falcon Fury says, what happened to Pryor? Were him and Kirk not getting along, or was he just not making plays? Joke Warrior says, seems like the Skins will stay average for another year. For once, I'd like to dominate teams, especially in the division. Yeah. It'd be nice to be, after the first 10 weeks of the season, it'd be nice to be 8-1 like the Eagles were, 7-2 like the Saints or the Vikings. It'd be nice to be dominant and looking to try to go get the number 1 seed like how the Eagles are. That'd be fun one year, right? Instead of always having to try to go 10-6 and win the division, or sneak in the back door at 9-7, 10-6, or like last year, 8-7-1. Trying to get in the playoffs at 9-6-1. It'd be nice to just be dominant for once, but we're not there in order to do that organizationally. You have to be right. It has to be right at the top first and trickle down to the coaching staff, which then trickles down to the roster and then the product on the field. We're not there yet, and probably a long way from there. If they had re-signed Kirk Cousins to a long-term deal 2 years ago like they were supposed to, we might be on our way to doing something big. But with that looming over our head and, you know, a lot of things that we have in the offseason looming, free agents and guys we need to re-sign, I don't see that being the case anytime soon, to be honest with you. Fire Breather 719 says, don't tell nobody about the secret weapon known as Jerick McKinnon. Good game from your Skins. Same to your Vikes, man. You guys are outstanding, especially on offense. Jonah Romberg says, I think we can end up 8-7-1 again. We're going to tie versus the Broncos. I don't want to tie anybody. Let's see. Reese says, Pierre Garçon is a warrior. I'd miss him too. I think we miss him more than anybody else that's no longer with the team. More than Deshaun Jackson, more than Chris Baker, more than anybody else that is no longer a Redskin. We miss Pierre Garçon the most. I would definitely say that. Gary B says, most disappointing thing this season is not bringing in a play caller. Jay is too predictable. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. There's times where Jay can be better in his decision making as a play caller, better in his decision making in terms of the game, whether to go for it. I didn't have a problem with him going for it on 3 of the 4 occasions. There was only one time, that 4th and 6, 4th and 7, like, bruh, no, kick the field goal. You know, all the other times was 4th and 2, 4th and 1. I didn't have a problem with him going for it on those times. But, you know, some of it is execution. You know, Brandon Sheriff doesn't get beat across his face. That's the first down. But, you know, we can sit here and second guess all we like. Bottom line is, we just haven't been good enough. Jay Gruden hasn't been good enough. The offense hasn't been good enough. The defense hasn't been good enough. We haven't been good enough. Special teams hasn't been good enough. Brian Forrester says, the receivers, including Jordan Reed for the number 1, which is what's been the most disappointing. Number 2, he says, the running back position, we have just a bunch of Jags, just a guy. Besides CT, I agree, and that was my answer for that. And number 3, I think we can finish either 10-6, 9-7, but miss the playoffs. I don't see 10-6. 10-6 would require us to win 6 out of our final 7. And in order to do that, you either got to beat the Saints and then lose one of your remaining games and win the rest, or you lose to the Saints and then win every single game. I don't see that happening. But 9-7 isn't out of the realm of possibility. Either way, I agree with you. We probably missed the playoffs. All right. Let's get out of here. Been here long enough. It's after 11. I've kept you here long enough. Appreciate you guys joining me on the program. Let's get to the final outcome and get out of here. It's the final outcome. Whoa, yeah. All right, so there's not a lot to say here. There's no beating around the bush. I'm not gonna sit here and keep you in suspense. It's no secret. I don't think we're gonna win this game. I don't think this game's gonna be close. 36-20 may not even reflect what the game looked like for much of the game. We may get a garbage time touchdown. It might have been 33-13 for much of the game. They get a late field goal. We get a late touchdown, and that's how you get to 36-20. But they're going to dominate us in this game. They may force a turnover or 2. They're going to run the football very effectively, I believe, which is going to allow them to be balanced. And I think they're going to have their way with us. I don't like our chances in this game. I don't like the backdrop to this game coming off of what we did last week. But all in all, and probably to the biggest point that I've made all night, we're just not good enough. You know, we're so inconsistent. We can beat anybody on any given week, but the lack of consistency is what's so alarming. And it would be just like our Skins in 2017 to find a way to muster up enough strength to go to the Superdome and win. But I think we're out of magic fairy dust for the season. We've used it all up. You know, whether it's getting an offensive pass interference call on Pierre Garçon that was pretty much a phantom call to help preserve the 49er win at home, or, you know, what we did against the Seahawks a couple of weeks ago, which was improbable. We've used up all our magic fairy dust. There's no more left in the jar. I don't see us going on the road and somehow, some way, taking down the big bad Saints. They're too hot. They're too good. They're too balanced. We're none of those things. And so I just don't see this ending well for us in this game. And I see us being 4-6 at the end of this game. And then for the most part, after this game, the tough part of our schedule is done. And then we'll see if we can maybe get on a run. You know, maybe beat the Giants twice. You know, got the Thanksgiving game coming up. With our luck, we may not even beat the Giants. You know, and they still scare the hell out of me. So anything's possible with this Redskins team. You don't know what team's going to show up, and that's the scary part. But all in all, Saints roll over our Skins in Week 11, if you ask me. That's going to do it for your man Louie T here on the Redskins Report Live. I am a Redskins fan, etched in burgundy and gold. My Redskins spirit will never die. Redskins spirit will never fold until we meet again. Hail to our beloved Redskins. Unfortunately, it looks like I'll be donning the all-black, dressed in all black like the Omen, which means we're going to take another one. Smack dab on the chin. In any event, I am your man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me here on this program. Thank you for all the comments, all the participation. And we'll reconvene on Sunday, R3. I'll see you then. No need in giving the rah-rah speech to the fellas, because I don't see that having any bearings on this football game. But, hey, fellas, don't embarrass me. That's all I can ask. But go out there, give it what you got. I'll be there rooting for you on Sunday like I always am, and being delusionally optimistic, and we'll see what happens. I'll see you guys later. Have a good one.